Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's A Cyclone of Fright special video, starring your co-host, me, Tell, and the regular one is back, the Scorpion, the one and only Damon Peel. He says to say hello to all our ghosts, ghouls, and gobos. And if you don't know which one you are, you're definitely a ghoul. Clearly, he's very excited to be in this week's video after his absence the last few weeks. Don't mind the fact that he seems kind of like he may have been weekend at Bernie's. I can assure you, he's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine, aren't you? Yes, I'm perfectly fine. He's just, trying to keep his neck sharp by doing some exercises. And, he has to make sure that he does his arm exercise. He can't afford to have little flappy arms now, can he? No. As you can see, he's perfectly normal, I say. Yes, in case you were wondering, that's his usual resting face. He particularly enjoys doing as such. One might even say it's his "I'm so cool" thing. Yeah, I don't know what on earth he's been up to. Maybe he's been on vacation and he just is a little bit tired because he's got his super cool sunglasses on. So I'm thinking maybe, he may have had a little bit too much non-alcoholic margaritas last night. So, obviously he just got back from vacation. It definitely has nothing to do with the fact of, potentially being attacked by Bartholomew, the accusations of being attacked by me. Yes, none of that happened. He's perfectly fine, as you can see here. Too much partying, I tell you. Too much partying. This is what happens, kids, whenever you, drink too much tropical punch and you don't check to see what the ingredients are in the tropical punch before you drink it. Yeah, do some more neck exercises. Ah, yes. Ah, yes. Clearly, he's quite comfortable in this position. He's definitely not, potentially going through rigor mortis or any other thing that might indicate that, he's dead. That's definitely just him sleeping. As you can notice, the, drool flying off onto his shirt. Definitely, that's normal behavior for him. Yep. Well, now that I've introduced the video, he's been in the video a little bit, he's got to go lay down. So he's going to bid y'all all adieu. Just a moment. See you later, guys. He totally didn't, just fall to the floor, non-responsive, because I definitely wasn't, trying to make appearances that he was in perfectly normal, able-bodied, shape. If you listen closely, you can hear him crawling on the carpet. Oh, yes, you can go lay down now. Anyhow, let's get on with the rest of the video. So, as I spoke about in a video a few weeks ago, I had watched the Vampire Diaries and had finished the series. Wasn't really a fan of the finale. Didn't even know really that it was the finale. That's how lackluster it felt to me personally. But I mean, some people may have loved it, but and that's definitely their right to love it. But this person right here did not really find it to be what I was expecting. Anyhow, so after finishing the series, then of course I started. I finished the originals as well. Didn't really care much for that ending either. And as I mentioned before, I didn't even attempt Legacies because just none of the characters were that important to me that I felt like I needed to invest in 5 more seasons of a show. And also the whole thing where uh Hope was a tribrid because somehow she had witch blood in her, but yet the vampires in the originals were only vampires, except for Klaus, of course, who was a hybrid because he was part werewolf, which had been suppressed, of course, until Elijah and Klaus had came up with a little scheme of sorts to get people to find the right ingredients so that he could uh, unsuppress his little werewolf side. But anyhow, so then after I finished that, I started in on the book series that the show was supposedly about. And just from the first book, I could tell that there was quite a few differences between the show and the characters. Because, for one, Elena is. I think it says she's supposed to be like pretty pale and blonde, and she has like bright blue eyes that they are always comparing to the lapis lazuli, which is some type of gemstone, I believe, that they were really obsessed with because it belonged. The first time they saw it was uh, whenever the person who turned them into a vampire, Catherine, had, I believe, a ring. She either had a ring or a necklace that had it on it, and so that's what their daylight rings were made out of, and so uh, they were particularly intrigued by the fact that, in their opinion, Elena looked like Catherine. In fact, Stefan, I'm pretty sure, had enrolled at the school, much like in the series, because he thought she was Catherine. But then he figured out pretty quickly that she wasn't Catherine, and at first he wanted nothing to do with her because he didn't want to subject anyone to his vampirism, because, much like in the series, he doesn't particularly enjoy being a vampire. However, his brother Damon does. And it also, one of the main differences between book Stefan and Damon is that in the book, as opposed to the series, they are 500 years old in the book and also from Italy. And so there's quite a bit of differences there because they've lived many lives beyond just like the, I think it was like 150 years or something like that uh they were supposed to be in the book series. Plus they, I believe, were supposed to have been born in Mystic Falls in the show, but and got turned in like 1864, I believe. But like I said, they're Italian, so sometimes like they'll break into random Italian musings uh in the book whenever like something happens. And so another difference is that uh unlike in this show where I believe it only showed Damon turning into a crow maybe once on like the first few episodes. In the first book, Damon can turn into a crow whenever he feels like it, basically. And then there's also the vampirism has something to do with something called the power in the book, and they can, like, the more human blood that they consume, the more power that they can tap into. It really hasn't necessarily explained where this power source is, but like Stefan and his diet of animal blood uh doesn't have nearly as much power as Damon, who enjoys drinking directly from the human source quite often, and he has really no remorse for it because he's just accepted that he is a vampire and they go about their way. And then in the book, he also becomes a vampire because Stefan and him stab each other, and they both had Catherine's blood in their system at that point. And then, unlike on the series where Catherine plays like a background character throughout several seasons, like up to usual hijinks and stuff, Catherine, I think, was only in the first and second book. And then Klaus was briefly in one of the books, but he wasn't around for very long. Unlike in the series where he kind of popped in and out every so often to like either antagonize the group or like clearly he had a thing for Caroline. So every so often he'd pop into their lives for those reasons on the show. But in the book, Klaus is really not too much of a thing. Like I think he's in like one book that I've read so far. And like some other differences is, of course, there's a character named Meredith who doesn't exist in this series. And she has a backstory that I just got to on the seventh book. No, eighth book. The eighth book. The first seven, I believe, were written by the original author, and then from what I saw online, the other ones were taken over by ghostwriters. So, like, the first four are basically of volumes 1 through 4 of like this overarching, like, high school type arc that explains all sorts of stuff that's really uh integral to the story, and then beyond that it like elaborates, and they're fighting like new villains and stuff, and various creatures and things are up to no good in uh Fells Church, as well as what the uh town in the book is called, whereas in the show it's Mystic Falls. And in my opinion, I personally think that Mystic Falls sounds like a place where vampires would be hanging out, whereas Fells Church kind of just like compared to the fact that I already knew it was Mystic Falls was kind of like, not really too interesting for a town that's overrun by vampires and other supernatural creatures. But I think in the book they explain that like vampires and other things are drawn to Fells Church because there's like a power current source, something that's like drawing them to it. Kind of like in Teen Wolf, how Beacon Hills was a beacon for the supernatural. That's basically how it explains what's going on in Fells Church. Is like things will come to the town for like the power that they can tap into. And at one point, like there's a reason that creatures and stuff may come to Fells Church because of Elena, and she's just like super powerful at that particular point. And then something else that's different in the books as opposed to on the show is that Meredith, which is like I said, doesn't exist in the book. Doesn't exist in the show. She is in a relationship with Alaric, who was their high school teacher. I think, like, the book starts out, they were juniors. And so he was their replacement teacher their junior year. And then so he invites a bunch of students over to his house, which, of course, anyone who would teach in real life would know is a like thing that you just simply do not do for any reason whatsoever. But he's just like casually invites them over to hang out. Like entire classes full of students are at his house at the one point, which I think is where Bonnie first really sees Damon, and then she's kind of like under his spell almost because I believe she kisses him, and Elena sees it, and then she tries to get Bonnie away because at this point she suspects that Damon is like pretty evil compared to Stefan, who, unlike in the series, the how this whole Stefan angle ended pretty soon because she just like instantly fell over head over heels, it seemed like, for Damon. They're still together as of book number 8. I mean, yeah, she thinks about Damon a lot, and she really doesn't understand why Stefan seems to have an issue with that. But at the same time, I think that it's supposed to be that they just are done being like grudgy against each other after all this time. So they kind of just accept that she's in love with them both at this particular point. Although there are moments whenever like one or the other will definitely seem to dislike the fact that she seemingly can't choose between them, even though she claims to love them for opposite reasons. Because, of course, Stefan is like the good guy, and he, uh, she was the one that he was the one that she met first, so she preferred him. But then Damon is this like mysterious bad boy who oozes power, basically. So she's like intrigued by him. And then Caroline is in the books, but she's not in their friend group. Like, she used to be their friend a long time ago, but at the point that the books start, they've had a falling out, and then she at one point is trying to go after Stefan, as or most of the girls in the school, because he's just this like beautiful like new student that everyone wants to get to know. Meanwhile, like I said, he doesn't really have any interest in like anything related to the humans. He would much rather have just like minded his own business, even though he was purposely enrolling at the school to see if Elena was Catherine. And then Tyler in the books is a werewolf still, but he also is like not a good dude at all compared to what we saw on like the TV series, how he was supposed to be at first kind of like a jerk, but then like after like the first season or whatever, he was kind of like a mainstay in the group. But in the books, it's pretty much like off the bat, he's just not the type of dude that any of them want to hang out with. And then he is like in the background working with Klaus, so that also doesn't help matters, because he already doesn't like them, they don't like him, and then he's working with this villain that they're encountering. Uh, so, like I said, I've made it up to book 8 out of 13, I believe, is the number that is in that particular set. And then there's the 4 Stefan's diaries that I will have to read afterwards. Which I will say that I don't really care much for Elena in the book series, because she's, instead of like just people liking her and stuff, and but overall she's supposed to be like uh pretty caring as to everyone. She spends a lot of time, because it's from her perspective, she spends a lot of time like just thinking about how everyone is always interested in her, because she's just like the best thing since sliced bread. It seems like she could have any guy that she wanted. At the start of the book, it had made mention how like basically all the guys in town had wanted her, and like every girl wanted to be her. And then she just has these moments where anytime that the like events aren't directly centered around her, she gets like super jealous that all the attention's not on her. So she definitely thrives on the chaos, especially whenever it involves Stefan and or Damon fighting to save her. So she definitely likes playing the damsel in distress for sure. I kind of already know some of the characters that are in game, because I had been on Vampire Diaries Reddit, of course, and so uh, naturally, sometimes whenever people are talking about the show, they'll talk about the differences between the shows and the book. So one of the end couples was revealed, but I can't say that I didn't expect it, given the fact that like a lot of people in the fan base of the show were kind of intrigued by the idea of the two characters being in game. Uh, there is in the book a boarding house that Stefan lives at. He doesn't live at the Salvatore Mansion. He lives at a boarding house that is ran by this lady. She's an older lady, and at first they're not really sure what's going on with her, because they can't really tell if she knows that Stefan is a vampire and is just ignoring it, or really what her deal is. But over time they get to know her better and they find out exactly what's been going on with her and stuff like that. So there are a lot of characters that get their own time in the book and stuff like that. It's just clearly they're overshadowed by whatever's going on chaotically with Elena's life. I'm trying to think of if I saw any shows recently that are worth mentioning, but I don't think I've watched any scary shows lately. I did watch Scary Movie 6 though. I found it to be quite funny. I know that there have been mixed reactions to it, but I found it pretty funny. And I think I'll definitely buy it whenever it comes out on video, which, given the fact that in today's society, that's usually like 2 or 3 months tops. Uh, I suppose it'll be out by definitely October. Uh, as far as on the book front, I haven't really had time to send it to the editor, so I'm still working on getting that into the editor so I can release it. Uh, I did make a few keychains that I thought turned out pretty cool that I may take to any future conventions that we appear at. And then I was able to get some cards with a QR code that I could possibly hand out should we go to any conventions in the future. And that's about it the on that front. Uh, don't really think I have anything else to say on this video, so I guess I will say that I hope all our ghost schools and gobos are having a great Saturday, and hopefully your weather's not like mine, because there's been a lot of flooding and just continuous rain for the last few days, which definitely makes for an interesting time to read, because of course, nothing's better than reading whilst you can hear rain outside. But like I said, there is a lot of flooding in areas, so they have a few roads that are shut down. So hopefully the rain will clear up in the next day or two, so that there will be time for the grass and everything to like soak up some of the water. Because heaven knows it's not going away on its own. But I mean, and there's no data centers to suck it up, so eh. So I will bid all my ghost goblins and ghouls, not to be confused with the villain on Sinister, adieu for the day. See you next time.